Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Nancy Drew Season 4, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, I think it's been a week, I believe, or it's been some time after the Nancy and Ace situation, and Nancy's kind of buried herself, after the heartbreak. Obviously, her and Ace are giving each other space because it's the thing of, well, what do we even say to each other? Like, Ace knows he basically tore her heart out and stomped on it, and he had his reasons, and Nancy can understand those reasons, but it's still the thing of, you pushed me to, like, open up to you, and now you're asking me to give up even though I don't want to give up, and he wants to give up, and they've got to find some way forward. Who knows how that's all going to play out. I like to think it's going to work out in the end and they can be together, but how do you counter Temperance's curse? We'll have to wait and see, but especially with any contingencies she might have set up in God, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm blanking on the word I'm kind of looking for. Just the contingency plan she set up in succession. Either way, Nancy's hoping to kind of dive into a case and hoping that will help her kind of focus on other stuff. And so she ends up running into Lacey again, which obviously when I saw Lacey, I was like, hey, it's the actress who plays Rose in, not Rose, Ruby in Charmed. But then, like, they brought up Detective Con. I was like, all right, she was in last season, wasn't she? Which now I'm probably like, I probably said the exact same thing last season about her. So it's like, I thought that was so interesting. But it's like, yeah, Lacey's working on a horror movie. She's remaking a classic horror movie called Lone Cook, which the moment Nancy brought up her grandmother, I was like, her grandmother's not alive. Because I was like, yeah, because her grandmother played a part in the whole Detective Con stuff, the Rosenhart killer situation. And it was like, and then, like, she had her story, we got, some insight to, but I was like, her grandma's not alive. The moment Lacey kind of got a little quiet once her grandmother got brought up in the conversation, and we kind of find out later on it's because her grandmother was the person that she could call upon anytime like anything good happened. So it's like her grandma passed away a week before they started filming this movie, and it's like, oh man, that's rough. And it didn't come up in conversation, but Nancy knows what that's like to lose someone that's so important to you, like that, because her mom was like that for her. And so how much of a struggle that was for Nancy, and how long it took her to find her way forward. Like, it's an understandable situation. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I do love this messaging of, I don't know, it reminds me of this, God, I think that it's a band called, was it Across the Atlantic? Is that the band's name? They have this song, and I can't remember the song title, but it's just like, there's a line in it, talking about just basically, I just need to leave this place better than I found it. And like Lacey saying that, like something along those lines made me go like, it just made me think of that song. It's in my Spotify playlist, so I do come across it from time to time. This particular song, so that's why it's even stuck in my head, but it's part of like the chorus of the song, and it's just like, I don't know, I like that line, I just need to leave this place better than I found it, because she had talked about, because her and Nancy, there are parallels where Lacey has kind of numbed herself, and she was kind of working through her numbness, just like Nancy was hoping to work on this case would kind of end up helping her get over everything. But it's like, it's the same thing as kind of like avoiding and kind of running away from your pain. It's like, you kind of just have to embrace and accept it. And it's like, right, I named this main character in this movie after my grandmother because my grandmother was kind of a survivor about, making this, leaving things better than you found it. And it's like, it was a thing, obviously it was a lesson that Nancy needed. She needed to kind of hear that. It's like, right, it's okay to, feel the way you feel, but if you get so caught up in it, you won't be able to enjoy life. You'll just kind of be like numbing yourself throughout life, so you won't be able to enjoy the joys of life. So I thought that was kind of obviously a very important thing for Nancy to kind of learn, especially with everything going on between her and Ace. But obviously they're working on a set, and I love, like, Ryan's a big fan of the movie, which I love that he's like, wait, how have you never seen the movie? And she's like, not a fan of horror movies. Part of me was wondering, it's like, well, is she a little Scooby-Doo-ish? Because I don't think it was a movie. I think it might have been an episode on a TV, maybe like a two-parter or something. But there's a thing where, like, right, the Scooby Gang suck at being on like a mystery cruise thing where there's a mystery to solve because they know it so well. So part of me was wondering if that was going to be Nancy's issue of like, right, because of her detective brain, she kind of immediately like removes herself as able to kind of figure out a horror movie. Or I wonder if that was like, it's never come up before, but I'm like, do mystery movies suck for her? Is she able to be like, oh, that's the person? Like, is she immediately able to kind of piece it together and that kind of ruins any like mystery story for her? Never really thought about that before. Now, maybe that has come up like little bits here and there, maybe in this show, and I'm just not remembering it off the top of my head. But either way, the thing I think it's so, but like her not liking horror movies, it doesn't seem like that's a recent thing. It seems like that's always been a thing. But it's like funny and interesting considering her life is a horror movie, considering like all the supernatural stuff she's had to deal with, over the past past 3 seasons, so, and continues to have to deal with. So it's a large part of her life now. So I think that is kind of ironic, but also understandable. But once again, that her probably dislike of horror movies probably predates, like all of this anyway. So, but I also love that Bess ended up getting a role in a movie. She's got like a single line, which is like, hey, really impressive. And she's like, I'll make sure to remember you small people. I love that. She was joking, of course, but I like that. It feels like you could definitely see, considering like at least the way like Bess's family and everything, and how she presents herself. I mean, obviously her connection to the Marvin family and stuff too. Like, she does seem like she could easily get swayed into being like, oh, the posh, like, oh, I'm the rising star. Which I almost wonder if the actress who plays Bess, is that where she got her start? Because she's like, oh yeah, like a lot of actors and actresses get their start with just like a small part in a movie, like a one-line thing, which I'm like, I wonder, is that kind of true to the actress who plays her? Like, is that kind of how she got her start in some capacity? I don't know, just it's something funny to think about. Because it's kind of like a meta conversation to have, considering like you are an actor playing a character playing as an actor in a movie. It's just, the layers to it's interesting. But either way, they're on the set of this movie and there's been some creepy incidents, and the director of the original movie ended up dying. And so now it's like, oh, okay, of course this place is being haunted by him, which I love when they kind of do like a spell to kind of remove him, kind of a cleansing. It's just kind of like, okay, this place seems a little lighter. And you can even see this look on Nancy and Bess's face, almost like, that felt a little too easy, because it's never that easy. And it's like, well, maybe it was better. But it turns out, no, it's not. It didn't work. There were still incidents after the fact, and Sheriff Lovitz ended up having to shut the set down. And I love like how the A and B plot end up connecting, where it's like George and Nick were both trying to get in contact with Bree, but they haven't. In the week, I was like, hell, we're right. So no one knows. I was like, because in my head, I kept thinking like, oh, did she die? But I'm like, I keep forgetting. The only reason why Abbott was in the circumstances he was in is because he was an older person. Like, Bree is obviously way younger, just like Nancy is. So it's not going to affect younger people the same way it's going to affect an older person. And my big question was like, right, has there not been any reports about people acting differently? And even if they had, people probably won't really like say anything, because like, people have had to been drinking like the tap water for a while. So that's why Nick was kind of letting it go. But George was like, I don't know, it's weird. I haven't heard from her. I set a meeting with her, it got canceled. Apparently you set a meeting with her and it got canceled. And she also hasn't posted on social media for a week. It's like, something's going on here. So it's interesting how the stories end up tying together, because it turns out that Bree was the, what was the term he gave it? The director asked for someone to kind of cover him with an umbrella, like you're the cover person or whatever. And she was on that set. And so it turns out, much like Abbott, when she got affected by that stuff, by what the goo in the water, it made her remember something that was buried. Because she had positive memories of being on that set. That's why she let them film the movie in her house, which is like the moment you had that connection, like, oh, so George and Nick are about to go see her about something related, but I mean unrelated, because they were like, oh, we want to follow up about that water stuff. And now it's like, right, Nancy's case ends up connecting in that regard. Like I said, I like how the plots converged in that regard. But it turns out, because we had heard from like, what was his name, Doug, he's one of like the assistant directors or something like that, or assistant PA, or I think it was like the assistant director. He was like, yeah, the original, I think his name was Jim, he was kind of a douchebag. He'd pull like these terrible pranks to kind of get the performance out of someone, and you're like, huh, wasn't that the same thing about Kubrick when it came? Like, I only learned that in more recent years. I don't always learn, I'm not the movie buff person, but obviously it's like, wasn't it Shelley Long? Like, he apparently famously kind of pushed her to get her performances for The Shining. So you're like, ugh. But that's also like, sadly, that's kind of in that world, and like someone kind of gets a little power trippy and just kind of wants it their way, and just it ends up turning into a nasty situation. But either way, tangents and all that aside, I think that's. I don't think it. I think at this point it's like, no, that's pretty like confirmed about the whole, like I say, Kubrick and Shelley Long of it all. But either way, he was such a dick that he kind of tormented the people. So the rest of the cat, like some other people on the some other people along with Bree ended up trying to give him his own medicine, and it led to him dying. Basically, he passed out from her scaring him, fell into the bathtub and drowned. She could have saved him, but she decided not to. And so it turns out like the stunt crew are the ones who are tormenting Lacey, because all that emotion of all that anger and everything that's associated with this movie and stuff like that, and everything with Jim was kind of passed on to them, and they were treating Lacey like she was Jim. So it is interesting how this situation has kind of become like this twofold thing, where not only did Bree remember, and that's why she's been ducking and diving, because like her conscience was kind of eating away at her about this thing, because she had for so many years thought like, oh, I had a positive experience in that movie, and now it's like, nope, my memories were rewritten, and now I remember everything now about what was going on, and also what I did. And also I mean, to the point that crew was like going after Lacey, and she fell into like the window, like some glass window, and ended up like getting stabbed by some glass, and they were going to stand there and watch her die, just like Bree watched Jim die. So history kind of repeating itself, interestingly enough. Luckily, Nancy and they got the supernatural pump from Tristan again. I could never remember home dude's name, and I guarantee you next episode I'm going to end up forgetting his name again. They got the pump from him, and I don't know why. I love the fact is that Nancy and Bess are having this conversation while they have to like talk louder and louder because the pump is going on, and it's just like right, we're having this conversation while we're just kind of, and Nancy's kind of nodding along, and they're adding, it's like, right, we still don't know why these specific 8 dead bodies ended up rising and what their part had to play in all of this. That's kind of another headache. We'll deal with this. But now the only supernatural pump in existence, because this was the only one, is now gone. So it's like, cool. So what are we going to do? We're going to have to fix that and give it back to Tristan before his parents found out it's missing, because last thing you want to do is get neck deep with the glass, because you've seen how they roll, and you don't want to be on the other side of them. So there's that rub of it all. And in case this situation does come up again, which it will, how do you rectify? They're going to have to find another way to kind of pump people from like this goo, because there's no other way of dealing with it now. So I think that's kind of interesting to have like the MacGuffin that could be the cure-all MacGuffin ends up being like, nah, that's kind of washed. I mean, you'd have to like attack it from the source, because it's so integrated with the water supply now. It's like you'd probably have to give everyone something that would automatically give them immunity from drinking it, or you just put something in the water that automatically purifies it. Like you'd have to kind of go either way to kind of counteract this. So how they'll go about it is going to be interesting too, But this whole situation did open up a new, like a whole set of circumstances of trying to understand, like, okay, so this is the second person that's remembered something that wasn't true. Their memories were rewritten. At least from Bree, we learned that this, like, she called her dad ended up fixing it. He went to something known as the Black Door, and that's all the details she knows. Her dad's dead now, so she can't ever ask him any questions about it. But it turns out, Ace ends up finding out that there's an article that shows that Bree's dad and Judge Abbott were friends. So Bree's circumstance happened in 93. Abbott's circumstance that he fixed happened in 95. So there was Abbott. Oh, so I guess Bree's dad's the one that let Abbott know about it. The way they made it sound like Abbott's the one that told him, but it's like their circumstances happened, like his happened first before Abbott's, didn't it? At least that was my understanding. So it's like, did he let Abbott know about the Black Door? But it's like, or maybe Abbott already knew about it, and he just never had a circumstance in which he needed to utilize it until, that situation in 95. How many other people are involved? Like, is there going to end up being kind of like I guess, using a more recent example, be kind of like a midnight club. Someone had referenced Are You Afraid of the Dark? I forgot what that group is called. Those who gather around the campfires in Are You Afraid of the Dark? It's been so long. I've never seen even like the reboot that came out later on. I never saw that. I haven't seen the original since I was like a kid, so I forgot what they were called. But maybe it was kind of like almost like a group, almost like Nancy's group that, maybe when they were, no, because they were already older when they found out about the Black Door. But how many other adults are involved? I mean, because once again, Abbott was like, the moment you pull this string is going to be an issue, because I guess so many people might have utilized this Black Door. Who knows what truths are going to end up being unearthed, and by who. And now I'm starting to wonder, I'm like, is Carson going to have something? Because I'm about to wonder about Ryan, but I'm like, well, Ryan's circumstances have all kind of come to the surface because of everything with his family and Lucy. So it's like, I don't see that being a thing, for them. And I don't know, maybe, like I said, we'll find out with Carson. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe something with Jean. I'm already blanking. I'm like, she popped up last episode, but it's like, that's Erica Sarah's character's name in this, right? It's Jean, right? I think so. I don't know. I wonder if we're going to find something about her. Like, maybe something about the glasses is going to pop up through. I mean, once again, maybe they have something. Like, they've been set up to be like, they're kind of douchebags, and you should be weary of them. And obviously with the introduction of Tristan too, it feels like they're probably not going to pop up a lot this season, but like, cause we've only seen them once so far, and we're already 4 episodes in. Tristan's made more appearances than his parents has. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what role they have to play in this, because they have some part in it. I don't think they're directly connected, but like I said, this is all, my theory had been, okay, this is all about unearthing one particular secret and everyone else is just collateral damage. Or maybe there's a thing of like, no, you need all of these secrets to like come to the surface because they're all connected to this bigger, larger secret. I don't know. They did end up convincing Bree to step down because it's like, right, we don't have the evidence, but the court of public opinion is enough to be like, hey, that could destroy you, so walk away, resign, and, be able to kind of keep your position and keep this secret buried. So it's like, just like they had with the whole Judge Abbott of it all. So, and George a bit was like, yeah, like someone who actually wanted to help this town, like, should actually fill that seat. And she was kind of referencing Nick, which Nick is willing to put his hat in the ring. I think it's interesting because I was actually worried that Nick was affected by the water early on, because the way George was like, what's up with you? You're typically always a person that's kind of like, your curiosity's going. Because she was like, yeah, I had Ace track her phone. It's like, right, that's illegal. It's like, what are you talking about? The illegal stuff we've done before now anyway. Why is that such an issue? I was like, are you forgetting about all the times like Nancy like breaks into like crime scenes and stuff, like breaks into places, picking locks? It's like, that's when I'm like, yeah. Like, is that really that much of a stretch, But it wouldn't be the first time, but I guess it's like, yeah, you're kind of a legitimate businessman now, and it's just like, we shouldn't be kind of getting mixed up in that side of things. It's like, because George was so confused, like, why are you acting like that? So I thought something was off, but because she's like, what happened to your curiosity? But I guess it's like, with their juggling everything, I guess he was not only taking space away from George, but maybe like a little bit of everything. But hearing George saying like, right, we do make a good team, so maybe we can cut back on how much like space we're giving each other, because I miss having my best friend around, and he admits like, yeah, me too. So I was like, oh, that's sweet. It's like, I do hope you guys do get back together, but I mean, like I said, I'm pushing for the Nancy and Ace of it all, but I don't know for sure that that's going to happen. I believe that it's highly likely, but this show might be like, no, that's just not going to happen. I mean, same thing for George and Nick. That might just be like no, we're just going to be friends. And I mean, if they can make that work, more power to them. Once again, I've just never had it's never worked out for me. It has to some extent, but that was just the whole being friends on the next thing. I've talked about that time and time again. It's never been something that worked out for me, but I know for some people who can make it work, other people can. Either way. We also never really got an answer from Brie about, like, because the way she was talking to someone on the phone, it sounds like she was helping someone shut down the whole thing of like, no, we're going to let, like, Brie never let that slip, but we know, like, before she got infected, she was letting someone know, like, hey, I put the kibosh on that deal, like, trying to make a deal with another town, like, so we could use their water supply. It's like, we'll keep using our water supply. That never came up, but it's like, right, she was talking to somebody, so somebody maybe who's connected to the Black Door is really pushing that. It feels like it had to be someone pretty high up, but I don't know. Another interesting element to this episode revolves around Sheriff Lovett. her finally like catching up and talking to Bess about the supernatural, because she was like, right, I was there investigating. I'd heard about like, oh yeah, like this movie set wasn't like the safest place, and what do I find? You in the center of everything, and like in a circle of salt trying to resolve everything. It's like, right, you want to do the supernatural stuff and the comfort in your home, fine, but don't try and do it in public. Which I'm like, that seems stupid. It's like even Bess has to be like, wait, what? You do realize, like, you know the supernatural exists. You witnessed it yourself. She didn't counter her on that, but it's like, right, like teaching our kids about the supernatural. Let's keep history natural. I'm like, she's like, let's leave the past in the past. I'm like, because it's like, right, this is part of Horseshoe Bay. And that's my point I was going to make. Horseshoe Bay has been intrinsically connected with the supernatural. You can't unbind that. It's forever going to be intertwined. This place has had supernatural event after supernatural. This place is a literal nexus for the supernatural. So there's no way you're going to be able to avoid that. And once again, it's that back and forth where I was like, well, I can see where like someone could have their reservations, but I agree, but I also disagree with like Bess teaching everyone, George's sister and her girlfriend last episode about the supernatural. But it's like, yeah, you arm yourself with this knowledge because it'll help you prepare yourself, especially if you're going to be in Horseshoe Bay and you need to be wary of it and be prepared and understand what's going on, because it is fundamental to the town. I mean, are we forgetting about Nancy's ancestor Temperance and what she did and how old she is? Like, there's no escaping the supernatural, because see, like, oh, let's leave it in the history. Let's keep the history natural. It's like, lady, you're not from this place. At least I don't think so. It seems like you came in here because most cops aren't from here. But it's like, at the core of it, this place has shown time and time and time and time and time again that the history never stays buried. Literally, this whole story is about the history being unburied, stuff that was covered up, the truth floating to the surface. It feels like Lovett might be the next person where we might find out some, but it doesn't seem like she's from Horseshoe Bay. So not unless we find out she does have some connection to this place. It's like, but I don't think she is from here. So I don't know. Maybe some other stuff from her past is going to resurface that maybe has some connection, even if she's not from here. Maybe she has a family connection to this. I have no idea. But Bess is like on her, yeah, you got your one strike, any further issues, and we're going to have a problem. It's like, you're going to come to regret that. Because I thought Lovitz was going to, like, all right, not be too bad on, like, getting on Bess's case, considering she hasn't done anything since last episode. But to be fair, Bess has been avoiding her like crazy since Avery's, like, point of going to the police. But I'm like, no, Lovett knows about the supernatural. So I figured, like, she probably cut Bess some slack. I was like, nope, she's doubling down and being like, yeah, keep that supernatural stuff to yourself. Don't teach our children. Was like, yeah, it is an integral part of this place's history, you know? Once again, like, you can't separate the natural from the supernatural when it comes to this place, because they've forever been intertwined with all the supernatural hoopla that's happened in this town. So that's definitely going to be an interesting storyline and element to kind of figure out how that all plays out. It's going to be really interesting to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.